A desperate woman uses her last coins to save a cowboy from a dead auction, only to discover her act of mercy has bound her to a man harboring deadly secrets about her family's past. The metallic clang of shackles against iron cuts through the desert morning like a death knell. Clara Whitmore, 26, presses her back against the weathered wall of Redemption's general store, her fingers clutching a small leather pouch that holds everything she owns in this world, $7 silver and 32 cents. The smell hits her next, not the usual mixture of dust and horse sweat that clings to frontier towns, but something sharper. Fear sweat. The acrid stench of men pushed beyond desperation into the realm where dignity dies. Redemption, New Mexico Territory. August 1884. A town that lives up to its name by offering second chances to those willing to pay the price. Clara peers around the corner toward the courthouse steps, where a crowd has gathered like vultures around carrion. On the platform, auctioneer Jeremiah Pike bangs his gavel with the enthusiasm of a man who profits from others' misfortune. Next item for sale, Pike's voice booms across the square, one cowboy, age approximately 30, strong back, good with horses. Debt owed, $57.40. Bidding starts at $20. Clara's breath catches in her throat. There, standing in chains on the auction block, is Daniel Cross, tall, weathered, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a jaw set against the humiliation of being sold like livestock. She'd seen him before, working the cattle drives that passed through town. Always polite, always respectful. The kind of man who tipped his hat to ladies and helped children retrieve lost toys from mud puddles. Now he stands in iron fetters, his pride being auctioned to the highest bidder. $20, calls out Silas Morton, the town's most notorious rancher. A man whose hired hands often bore suspicious bruises and whose cattle bore brands that changed with suspicious frequency. Clara's fingers tighten around her coin pouch. $7.32. Not enough to buy a man's freedom. Not nearly enough. But sometimes not enough has to be enough. Clara pushes through the crowd, her heart hammering against her ribs like a caged bird. The faces around her blur. Merchants calculating profit, ranchers evaluating livestock, women whispering behind gloved hands about the scandal of it all. $25. Morton's voice cuts through the murmur of the crowd. Pike nods approvingly. $25 from Mr. Morton. Do I hear 30? Clara reaches the front of the crowd just as Daniel's eyes find hers. For a moment, something passes between them. Recognition, perhaps, or simply the shared understanding of what it means to be alone in an unforgiving world. She notices details now that distance had obscured. Fresh rope burns on Daniel's wrists beneath the shackles. A purple bruise along his jaw. Blood on his knuckles that speaks of a fight recently lost. $30. The bid comes from Ezra Blackwood, owner of the territory's largest silver mine. A man whose workers descended into his shafts healthy and emerged broken, if they emerged at all. Clara's stomach turns. She's heard the stories about Blackwood's operation. Men who went to work for him had a way of disappearing into the desert, their families left to wonder and grieve. $30 to Mr. Blackwood, Pike announces. Do I hear 35? Clara steps forward, her voice barely above a whisper. $58. The crowd falls silent. Pike blinks, certain he's misheard. I'm sorry, miss. Did you say? $58. Clara's voice grows stronger, carrying across the square like a challenge thrown down before God and man. I bid $58. Morton laughs, the sound harsh as crow calls. Little lady, you sure you got that kind of money? Clara opens her pouch and pours its contents into her palm. $7 silver catch the morning sun like fallen stars. The 32 cents in copper pennies gleam dully beside them. I have $7.32, she says clearly. But I'm good for the rest. Ask anyone in town about Clara Whitmore's word. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Clara Whitmore, the seamstress who'd mended their clothes, the woman who'd sat with their sick children, the lady who'd never broken a promise or told a lie. Pike looks uncertain. Miss Whitmore, the law requires payment in full. The law requires payment, interrupts a new voice. It doesn't specify when. Judge Cornelius Hayes pushes through the crowd, his black robes making him look like a raven among sparrows. He's known Clara since she was a child, had watched her parents die of fever and seen her struggle to survive alone. Miss Whitmore, the judge continues, are you prepared to accept full responsibility for this man's debt? Clara looks at Daniel, seeing something in his eyes she can't quite name. Gratitude, yes, but something else. Something that might be warning. I am, Your Honor. Then by the power vested in me by the territory of New Mexico, I declare this debt transferred to Clara Whitmore, with payment terms to be negotiated privately. Pike bangs his gavel with obvious reluctance. Sold to Miss Whitmore for $58. The crowd disperses like smoke and wind, leaving Clara and Daniel alone on the courthouse steps. The deputy sheriff unlocks Daniel's shackles with a key that sounds like freedom being born. Daniel rubs his wrists, his eyes never leaving Clara's face. Why? Because no man should be sold like cattle. You don't know me. Don't know what I might have done to deserve this. Clara studies his face, the lines around his eyes that speak of laughter as well as sorrow, the calluses on his hands that tell of honest work, the way he holds himself despite his recent humiliation. I know enough. Daniel picks up his hat from where it had fallen during his arrest, brushing dust from the brim with careful attention. The debt's real, Miss Whitmore? $57.40. I lost it all in a poker game to Silas Morton. Gambling debt. Stupidity debt. Daniel's smile carries bitter edges. Thought I could win enough to buy my own spread. Instead, I lost everything I'd saved in 3 years of driving cattle. They walked together down Main Street, past the saloon where Daniel's dreams had died and the bank where Clara's parents had once kept their modest savings. The town feels different now, smaller somehow, as if Clara's act of defiance has shifted the very foundations of what's possible. There's something you should know, Daniel says as they reach Clara's small house behind the dress shop. About why Morton wanted me so bad. What? Daniel hesitates, his hand on the gate latch. I used to work for him. 3 years ago. Left under difficult circumstances. What kind of circumstances? The kind that make a man enemies. Clara opens the gate, gesturing for Daniel to follow her into the small garden where she grows vegetables and herbs. The space is neat, orderly, a reflection of a woman who's learned to make the most of what little she has. Mr. Cross, she says, settling onto a wooden bench beneath an apple tree her father had planted 20 years ago. I may be a spinster seamstress, but I'm not naive. If you're going to be staying here. Staying here? The debt makes you my responsibility. Legally speaking, you're bound to work for me until it's paid off. Daniel's face flushes red above his beard. Miss Whitmore, I appreciate what you did, but I won't be any woman's property. And I won't have any man's debt hanging over my head. Clara's voice carries steel beneath the silk. The law is clear. You work for me until the debt is satisfied or you go back to the auction block. They stare at each other across the small garden, two stubborn wills colliding like storm fronts over the desert. What kind of work? Daniel asks finally. Honest work. Repairs around the house, help with the garden, protection for a woman living alone. Protection from what? Clara's gaze drifts toward the mountains that ring the valley, their peaks sharp as broken glass against the sky. From whatever comes. 3 days pass in careful politeness. Daniel repairs Clara's roof, fixes her fence, and tends her garden with the quiet efficiency of a man accustomed to hard work. Clara mends his clothes, cooks his meals, and tries to ignore the way her heart skips when he smiles. The fragile peace shatters on Thursday morning when Silas Morton arrives with Sheriff Buck Reynolds in tow. Clara answers the knock to find Morton's bulk filling her doorway, his smile as warm as a snake's belly. Behind him, Reynolds shifts uncomfortably, his hand resting on his gun butt. Miss Whitmore, Morton says, tipping his hat with mock courtesy. Heard you've taken in a stray. Mr. Cross is working off his debt as the law allows. About that debt. Morton produces a folded paper from his vest pocket. Seems there's been a mistake. Clara takes the document, her heart sinking as she reads. It's a promissory note, signed in Daniel's hand, for $237. This isn't the debt that was auctioned, she says. No, ma'am. This here's a separate obligation. Seems your Mr. Cross borrowed money from me last year to pay for his sister's medical treatment. Never paid it back. Daniel appears in the doorway behind Clara, his face pale as winter sky. That note was forgiven when Sarah died. Got that in writing, do you? Morton's smile widens. Because I surely don't recall forgiving any such debt. Sheriff Reynolds clears his throat uncomfortably. Miss Whitmore, if this debt is legitimate. It's not, Daniel interrupts. Morton's lying. That's a serious accusation, Cross. Reynolds' hand tightens on his gun. You calling Mr. Morton a liar? I'm calling him exactly what he is. The tension in the small garden grows thick as summer heat. Clara steps between the men, her mind racing through possibilities and consequences. Sheriff, she says carefully, what does the law say about disputed debts? Well, if there's a question of legitimacy, it would have to go before Judge Hayes. Morton's smile falters slightly. No need to trouble the judge with this. I'm willing to be reasonable. Miss Whitmore can transfer her claim to me and we'll call it even. Transfer my claim? The debt you bought at auction. Sign it over to me and I'll forget about this other matter. Clara looks at the forged note in her hands, then at Daniel's face. She sees fear there but also something else. Determination. The look of a man preparing to fight impossible odds. And if I refuse? Morton's mask of civility slips. Then Mr. Cross goes back to auction. And this time I'll make sure the bidding goes my way. That evening, after Morton and Reynolds have left with promises to return tomorrow for Clara's answer, she and Daniel sit in her small parlor like conspirators planning revolution. Tell me about your sister, Clara says. Daniel stares into the fire, his hands clasped between his knees. Sarah was all the family I had left after our parents died. She got sick 2 years ago, consumption. The doctor in Santa Fe said he could help her, but it would cost money I didn't have. So you borrowed from Morton. Thought I was borrowing from the bank. Morton arranged the loan, said he was just helping out. Didn't find out until later that the money came from his personal account. And when she died? Morton came to the funeral. Said he was sorry for my loss, that the debt died with Sarah. Even shook my hand on it. Clara studies Daniel's face in the firelight, reading truth in the lines around his eyes. But now he's changed his mind. Now he wants something else. What? Daniel hesitates, then reaches into his shirt pocket and produces a small brass key. Sarah gave me this before she died. Said our father told her to keep it safe, to only give it to someone she trusted completely. What does it open? I don't know. But Morton's been asking about it ever since Sarah's funeral. Casual-like but persistent. Clara takes the key, feeling its weight in her palm. It's old, ornate, with symbols carved into the metal that she doesn't recognize. There's something else, Daniel continues. The night before the poker game where I lost everything, Morton made sure I was drinking. Kept buying rounds, kept pushing me to bet higher. I thought he was just being friendly. He set you up. Set me up to lose. Then arranged for me to be auctioned where he could buy me legal-like. Clara turns the key over in her hands, understanding beginning to dawn. He doesn't want you for your labor. He wants you for this key. That's what I figure. But why? What could be so important about? Clara stops mid-sentence, her eyes widening as memory floods back. She sets the key on the table and hurries to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. My father had a key like this, she says, rummaging through old papers and photographs. I remember him showing it to me when I was a child, telling me it was important but never saying why. She finds what she's looking for, a small wooden box wrapped in faded blue cloth. Inside, nestled in velvet, lies a key identical to Daniel's. 2 keys, Daniel breathes. 2 keys to what? Clara examines both keys more closely, noticing details she'd missed before. Numbers etched into the metal. Coordinates, perhaps, or a combination. Daniel, she says slowly, what was your father's name? James Cross. Why? Clara's blood turns to ice water. My father's name was James Whitmore. But before he married my mother, before he came to redemption. What? His name was James Cross. The revelation hangs between them like smoke from a funeral pyre. Clara stares at Daniel, seeing her own features reflected in his face. The same stubborn chin, the same storm-gray eyes. We're brother and sister, she whispers. Half-brother and sister, Daniel corrects, his voice hollow. Same father, different mothers. But that means we've been living a lie our whole lives. Clara's mind races through implications and consequences. The debt that binds them. The attraction she's felt growing between them. The terrible irony of fate bringing them together in the worst possible way. The keys, she says, forcing herself to focus on immediate dangers. If our father gave us each one, then whatever they open, he meant for us to find it together. A sound outside makes them both freeze. Hoofbeats. Multiple riders approaching fast. Daniel moves to the window, peering through the curtains. Morton. And he's brought friends. Clara counts the shadows moving in her yard. 6 men. Maybe 7. Too many to fight. Then we run. Clara grabs a traveling bag, stuffing it with essentials, food, water, ammunition for her father's old rifle. Daniel checks his gun, a Colt .45 that's seen hard use but still shoots straight. Where do we go? Clara asks. Daniel studies the 2 keys, his mind working furiously. The numbers on these keys, they're not random. They're coordinates. Coordinates to what? Only one way to find out. A fist pounds on the front door, rattling the frame. Morton's voice booms through the wood. "Miss Whitmore. Open up. We need to talk." Clara and Daniel slip out the back door, moving through shadows toward the stable where Clara keeps her horse. The animal, a sturdy mare named Patience, snorts softly as they approach. "One horse," Daniel observes. "Two riders. Patience is strong. She can carry us both." They saddle the mare quickly, their hands working with desperate efficiency. Behind them, the sound of splintering wood announces that Morton's patience has run out. "There!" A voice shouts from the house. "They're in the stable." Gunfire erupts, bullets whining off the stable walls like angry hornets. Clara and Daniel mount Patience, Clara behind Daniel, her arms wrapped around his waist. "Hold tight," Daniel says, spurring the mare forward. They burst from the stable into the moonlit yard, Morton's men scrambling to mount their own horses. Clara fires her rifle over Daniel's shoulder, more to discourage pursuit than to hit anything. "Which way?" Daniel shouts over the thunder of hoofbeats. Clara looks at the keys in her hand, then at the stars wheeling overhead. "North, toward the old mining claims." They ride into the desert night, leaving redemption behind like a fever dream. Behind them, Morton's men give chase, their torches bobbing like fallen stars in the darkness. The hunt has begun. They ride hard for 2 hours, following game trails and dry creek beds that Daniel knows from his years driving cattle. Patience proves her name, carrying them steadily through terrain that would challenge a mountain goat. Finally, as the moon reaches its zenith, they stop to rest beside a natural spring hidden among red rocks and twisted juniper trees. "We can't keep running forever," Clara says, watering Patience while Daniel keeps watch. "Don't intend to." Daniel studies the keys again, using moonlight to read the numbers etched into the metal. "These coordinates, they're leading us somewhere specific." "Where?" "If I'm reading them right, about 10 miles north of here. There's an old Spanish mission in those hills. Been abandoned for 50 years. Clara sits beside him on a fallen log, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders like a lead blanket. "Daniel, about what we discovered." "About us being related?" "It changes things." Daniel nods, his jaw tight. "Changes everything." They sit in silence, listening to the desert night, coyotes calling in the distance, wind whispering through stone arches carved by time and weather. "Tell me about our father," Clara says finally. "Don't know much. He left when I was 10, said he had business to finish. Never came back. He came to redemption. Changed his name, married my mother, started over." "Why?" Clara reaches into her traveling bag and produces a leather journal, its pages yellow with age. "I found this after he died. Never could make sense of it until now." She opens the journal to a page covered with her father's careful handwriting. Daniel leans closer, reading over her shoulder. "The Esperanza cache," he reads aloud. "Hidden by Father Miguel before the Apache raids of 1834. 2 keys required for access. Trust no one with both." Father Miguel was the priest at the old mission, Clara explains. According to this, he hid something valuable before the Apache drove out the Spanish settlers. "Hidden what?" Clara turns the page, revealing a crude map drawn in faded ink. "Gold. Enough to buy a small kingdom according to the stories." Daniel whistles softly. "And our father found out about it. Found out about it but couldn't access it alone. So he split the key, gave half to each of his children. Insurance policy. Or a test. Maybe he wanted to see if we'd find each other, work together. Well, we found each other." Daniel's laugh carries bitter edges. Just not the way he probably intended. The sound of distant hoofbeats interrupts their conversation. Morton's men, still hunting, still determined. "Time to go," Daniel says, helping Clara to her feet. "Daniel." Clara catches his arm as he turns toward Patience. "Whatever we find at that mission." "What about it?" "We split it equally. Partners, not whatever else we might have been." Daniel meets her eyes, seeing pain there that mirrors his own. "Partners." They mount Patience and ride deeper into the desert, following their father's map toward secrets buried in stone and time. The mission appears at dawn like a mirage made solid, crumbling adobe walls and a bell tower that reaches toward heaven with broken fingers. Weeds grow through cracks in the courtyard, and lizards sun themselves on stones that once echoed with prayers. Clara and Daniel approach cautiously, their eyes scanning for signs of pursuit or ambush. The place feels haunted, heavy with the weight of abandoned dreams. According to the map, Clara says, consulting her father's journal, the cache is hidden beneath the altar. They enter the chapel through a doorway that no longer has a door. Inside, morning light streams through holes in the roof, illuminating faded murals of saints and angels. The altar stands at the far end of the chapel, a simple stone table carved with symbols that match those on their keys. 2 keyholes, Daniel observes, running his fingers over the carved stone. Side by side. Clara produces her key, its brass surface warm from her touch. Together? Together. They insert the keys simultaneously, turning them in unison. The sound of ancient mechanisms grinding to life echoes through the chapel as a section of the altar slides aside, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Well, Daniel says, lighting a torch from his saddlebags. No turning back now. They descend into the earth, their footsteps echoing off stone walls carved by Spanish craftsmen 2 centuries ago. The air grows cool and still, heavy with the scent of age and secrets. The staircase ends in a small chamber lit by their torch. And there, stacked against the far wall like a dragon's hoard, lies the Esperanza cache. Gold bars gleam in the flickering light. Silver coins spill from rotted leather bags. Precious stones catch the torchlight and throw it back in rainbow fragments. My God, Clara breathes. There's enough here to buy half the territory. Daniel moves closer to the treasure, his torch revealing more details. Look at this. He points to a wooden chest sitting apart from the rest of the cache. Unlike the gold and silver, which show signs of age and tarnish, the chest appears well-maintained, recently disturbed. Clara opens the chest, revealing not treasure but documents. Land deeds, mining claims, banknotes, all bearing recent dates and familiar signatures. Silas Morton, she reads from one of the documents. Ezra Blackwood. Judge Hayes. What is this? Clara studies the papers, her face growing pale in the torchlight. It's a conspiracy. They've been using the mission as a meeting place, planning to divide up the territory between them. Divide it up how? By driving out the small ranchers and homesteaders. Creating artificial shortages, manipulating land auctions, even? Clara's voice trails off as she reads further. Even what? Even arranging for certain people to die. Look at this. She shows Daniel a list of names, some crossed out in red ink. Among the crossed out names, James Cross. James Whitmore. Our father, Daniel says quietly. They killed him. Both versions of him. The truth settles over them like a shroud. Their father hadn't abandoned his families. He'd been murdered for discovering the conspiracy, for threatening to expose the corruption that reached to the highest levels of territorial government. That's why Morton wanted the keys, Clara realizes. Not for the gold but for the documents. Evidence of their crimes. Evidence that could hang them all. A slow clap echoes through the chamber, the sound sharp as gunshots in the confined space. They turn to see Silas Morton emerging from the shadows, a gun in his hand and a smile on his face. Very good, Morton says. Very good indeed. You've saved me considerable trouble. Behind him, 3 of his men spread out, blocking the only exit. How did you find us? Daniel asks. Followed the map same as you. Your father was careless, leaving that journal where anyone could find it. You killed him. I killed a man who threatened my business interests. Nothing personal. Morton steps closer to the treasure, his eyes gleaming with avarice. Amazing, isn't it? All this wealth just sitting here waiting for someone smart enough to claim it. It belongs to the church, Clara says. The church is dead. The mission is abandoned. Possession is 9/10 of the law. What about the other 10th? Morton's smile turns predatory. The other 10th dies with witnesses. Morton gestures with his gun toward the treasure. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to help my men load this gold onto pack horses. Then you're going to disappear into the desert, and no one will ever see you again. And if we refuse? Daniel asks. Then you die right here, right now, and I load the gold myself. Clara looks at the treasure, then at the documents that could expose Morton's conspiracy. 2 choices, both leading to death. Quick death now or slow death in the desert after helping Morton steal a fortune. But there's a third option, one that Morton hasn't considered. Mr. Morton, Clara says, her voice steady despite the gun pointed at her heart. You're making a mistake. What mistake? You assume we came here for the gold. Morton's eyes narrow. What else would you come for? Clara holds up the documents, the evidence of conspiracy and murder. Justice. Justice? Morton laughs. Justice is what the strong make it. And right now, I'm the strongest man in this room. Are you? The question hangs in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Morton's confidence wavers slightly as he realizes Clara isn't showing the fear he expected. You see, Clara continues, while you were following us here, we sent word to the territorial marshal. About the conspiracy. About the murders. About this cash. You're lying. Am I? Daniel, show him. Daniel reaches slowly into his shirt pocket, producing a folded paper. Telegraph receipt. Sent from the way station 10 miles back. Morton's face goes white. That's impossible. You didn't have time. We had all the time we needed. While you were searching my house, we were already on our way here. While you were gathering your men, we were sending evidence to Santa Fe. The lie comes easily, born of desperation and the need to buy time. But Morton doesn't know it's a lie, and uncertainty is a weapon as sharp as any blade. Even if that's true, Morton says, his voice less certain now, it doesn't matter. No one will believe the word of a seamstress and a drifter against respected businessmen. They'll believe the documents, Clara says. Your own handwriting. Your own signatures. Your own words condemning you. Morton's gun wavers slightly. Give me those papers. No. I'll kill you both. Then you'll never find all the evidence. You think this is the only cache? The only hiding place our father used. Another lie, but Morton doesn't know that either. Clara can see doubt creeping into his eyes, fear replacing confidence. You're bluffing. Am I? Are you willing to bet your life on it? The standoff stretches like a held breath. Morton's men shift nervously, sensing their leader's uncertainty. Then Daniel moves. Daniel's hand drops to his gun with the speed of a striking snake. Morton fires, but uncertainty has spoiled his aim. The bullet winds off stone as Daniel's Colt clears leather. Thunder fills the chamber. Gun smoke billows like fog. When it clears, Morton lies on the stone floor, clutching his shoulder and cursing in 3 languages. His men hesitate, caught between loyalty and self-preservation. Drop your guns, Daniel orders, his Colt steady in his hand. 2 of the men comply immediately. The third, a hard-faced killer named Jake Sutter, decides to try his luck. Clara's rifle speaks from the shadows where she'd taken cover. Sutter spins and falls, his gun clattering across the stone floor. Anyone else feeling lucky? Daniel asks. The remaining men raise their hands, their faces pale in the torchlight. Clara emerges from cover, her rifle still trained on Morton's men. Tie them up. Use their own ropes. As Daniel secures the prisoners, Clara gathers the documents from the chest. Evidence of conspiracy, murder, and corruption that reaches to the highest levels of territorial government. What now? Daniel asks. Clara looks at the treasure, then at the evidence in her hands. The gold could buy them new lives, new identities, freedom from the past that's haunted them both. But it would also mean letting Morton's conspiracy continue. Letting other families suffer as theirs had suffered. Now we choose, she says. Choose what? Who we want to be. Our father's children or something better. Clara walks to the treasure, her decision crystallizing like frost on winter glass. She picks up a single gold coin, feeling its weight in her palm. This gold has been hidden for 50 years. It can stay hidden a little longer. What about Morton's conspiracy? That ends today. Clara pockets the documents, then helps Daniel gather the prisoners. Together they climb the stairs back to the chapel, leaving the treasure in its ancient hiding place.